You don't hear a lot about British colonization of India anymore. People speak of British association with India. It's a little more polite, but also it was perhaps the most polite colonization in history, and it began from here in Oxford back in the 16th century. It was a relationship destined to go a long way.
How his letters lay the foundation of Anglo-Indian literature. That this long predates the East India Company, never mind the Raj. It established a link of learning between Oxford and India. From then to now, it's been a connection that has set a stamp on India. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh is one of about 1,100 Oxford alumni in India. Others include Montek Singh, Amitav Ghosh, Ramchandra Guha and Rajdeep Sardesai. And the stamp is set the other way around as well. In all, 363 Indian students are studying in Oxford today, and there are 84 Indian academics in Oxford.
We are delighted and honoured that more than 90 external guests travelling to this little corner of Oxfordshire from India.
The Indian season at Oxford was marked with an India Day at Oxford that celebrated these associations and prepared to build more.
Civil society.
It was a day of celebration of the very long-standing links that Oxford University has with India. It was a day to recognise those parts of the university that have strong ties, strong collaborations, strong exchange programs with different universities, different academic centres in India. But for us, it was also an opportunity to reinvigorate the collaborations with India, and we look forward to Oxford University that has played such an important role over many, many decades in its relationship with India. We look forward to an even stronger link in the future.
Oxford and India developed close associations over centuries.
India has been a topic for study in Oxford for centuries, as you say. We have one of the finest collections of Indian art in the Ashmolean Museum. We have very significant collections of Indian literature and manuscripts in the Bodleian Library. We have had now, in recent years, a very successful, remarkable program, master's program, an MSc on contemporary Indian studies.
More controversially, some of the first treasures taken out of India headed to Oxford. The Mughal paintings were given to Oxford in 1630 by William Laud, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury and a St. John's College graduate. It was in the 19th century that academic relations began in earnest. The first Oxford professorship for India was established in 1832. Indian students first came to Oxford in 1871, and Oxford's India Institute was founded in 1883. But the past has only set the scene for very much more to come. Some of that looks at historic India in new ways, such as the recently opened Centre for Hindu Studies to add to the older departments for historical studies.
Well, really, the centre was set up to begin the development of this area of study, Hindu studies. It's not studied in India because there's no study of religion. But Hindu studies is more than religion. It's culture, it's anthropology, it's history. So this is a unique development, something that Oxford is offering back to India. And in the context of the history of Oxford, the Indian Institute trained the civil servants of the Raj who went to India to impose a culture maybe on India. So 60 years later, it's very appropriate and a sign of the development of a genuine peer relationship that Oxford can now offer back a new subject area for India to consider itself, to study itself, and certainly from the Oxford level, I think that's a tremendous partnership.
But Oxford does want to move on from its historical associations of studying history.
Over over the past several decades, Oxford's strength has expanded, and now it is in science and medicine, and particularly in scientific and medical research, that Oxford is a powerhouse, is a very significant contributor to the world of medical research, to the world of scientific research.
I'd like to join the... And we may not have seen the best or the most yet. Chancellor Chris Patten has ambitious plans for taking Oxford's relations with India further.
Oxford is one of the best places in the world to study mathematics, and the Vice-Chancellor last time...
Lord Patten, you have these close family relations with Bollywood, and as Chancellor you're looking to take Oxford's relations with India forward. That's quite comprehensive, isn't it?
Absolutely. We've got a long relationship with India, and it's meant that over the years some of the most prominent Indians have been part of our community here, whether Indira Gandhi and Manmohan Singh, or great figures in the literary world like Amitav Ghosh or Vikram Seth, and great scientists and economists. So there's a long relationship, but the relationship has never been more important than it is today. We've got a rising number of Indian students. We've got about 80 of our academics, professors and lecturers are Indian. And we've got more and more collaboration with India in research on health issues, on social sciences, on poverty, on economics and business. So it's a really important relationship. And frankly, we want to attract more of India's best minds to spend at least part of their time studying here and researching here.
Indian students are the second fastest growing nationality group in Oxford. The majority are in the traditional social sciences, but increasing numbers are studying business administration, biochemistry and engineering. And the connection is going far wider than the traditional India studies, as India Day showed.
They set up it's fair to say that physicists have led the way in all the things that have become fashionable of late, in collaboration, in having a level playing field for people to talk to each other across the world, democratic in the way we operate. It's not something we put on. So why India? Because, well, India has actually grown to be quite a major player in theoretical physical sciences, I would say, in the last 10, 20 years.
We all know there are several reasons for cancer, but one of the very strong reasons which is emerging in scientific world is actually the environmental implications, where you do see, like we have seen markers. So there's a lot of tests being done now on.
And they have a lot of money from the Bill and Gates Foundation for training, which is a 4-year PhD programme in healthcare innovation. And our definition of healthcare innovation here means training biomedical engineering.
Talk of tradition, and Oxford is stuffed with it, but it couldn't stay on top on tradition alone. Oxford has moved with the times, and that has meant that the business of learning, teaching, research has to work first as business. After the break, the Oxford many of us didn't know. A neutrino is a tiny particle that travels about the speed of light. You'd want to study these point to point about 7,000 kilometers apart. Perfect distance, therefore, for this new collaboration between a neutrino factory, as it is called here in Oxford, and an observatory in India. A pointer to a new kind of relationship between Oxford and India.
This neutrino project is a very ambitious proposal in India to build an underground neutrino detector which would be able to detect these particles, which are amazing particles. They are passing through us right now. We don't feel them. It takes a huge detector to even catch one of them and to be able to then say that it has interacted in the detector. But these are radiated all the time from natural sources, from the sun, from exploding stars, from mysterious objects across the universe we don't even know the identity of. And the idea was that if India built this neutrino detector, which is currently being done in Tamil Nadu, they have identified a site. It has to be done underground to shield it from cosmic radiation and so on. Neutrinos are quantum objects. They don't behave like ordinary particles. They change back and forth into other kinds of neutrinos as they travel. And so these are called neutrino oscillations, and the purpose of this experiment would be to study these oscillations over a very long distance, which is the distance between here and this place in Tamil Nadu. It is somewhere like 7,000 kilometers. And it turns out that is exactly the optimal distance to study a particular aspect of these oscillations.
In this field, Indian scientists are at the cutting edge of world research. New discoveries in Japan have made the Indian project even more promising.
One of the key collaborations is in something called superstring theory, which is meant to be possibly so far the most successful attempt to try to create a so-called quantum theory of gravity, and we believe we need that to understand the actual Big Bang, whatever it was. And although progress is slow, it is a very difficult problem. I don't think we're going to have answers tomorrow. But we have collaborations in precisely this topic with our counterparts in India.
And as it emerged at India Day, even more than science and the social sciences, Oxford is now pushing ahead unexpectedly with business studies on India and business with India. This ancient university is embracing the world of money. It has to in order to survive. It has set out to earn £1.25 billion and already has earned £1 billion. And when you think of global business now, you think India.
In a sense, broadening its brand, its reputation in India. I think too many Indians would see Oxford as simply a place that does history and the social sciences. And of course, Oxford has extraordinary strengths in business studies. We're standing right here inside school, but also, of course, in science and in many other facets of, if you like, business and economic related disciplines. So Oxford needs to show all that to its Indian partners and potential partners, and that's very good for the wider British-Indian connection as well.
Oxford is anything but shy of moving on from purely academic studies towards studying business and becoming a business itself.
There's been quite a revolution in British universities over the last 20 years or so, and from a more narrow focus on teaching and academic research, more and more of them have realised that actually, although that basic academic work is hugely important, it's the foundation of everything, actually a lot of it can also be commercialised. It can be turned into licenses for wonderful intellectual property. It can be the foundation of very exciting and important new businesses. And Oxford has been one of the leaders in that revolution. We've seen it with ISIS Ventures, with the work that's been done on intellectual property and so on. And I think Oxford has a wonderful opportunity to go on building a relationship with India that encompasses everything from basic academic research, scientific, but also into literature and the other humanities, but right through into commercial partnerships, innovation partnerships at the leading edge of technology and science.
It is the new Syed School in ancient Oxford that is at the heart of these new business links.
What makes Syed very special is the social sciences. Until now, it's kind of been looked at, management has to show that it is rigorous. And if you can't show rigor, then you're not real. And so there's been this very strong move towards trying to make decisions very analytical. But yet, human beings are irrational, and the literature on leadership is very fuzzy. So then a school which is not afraid to take the social sciences and embrace them, bring in the sociologists, bring in the economists, bring in physiology and the brain. This is very encouraging, and I think it's an important trend, it's an important differentiator.
We have a very extensive student population from India, and that naturally leads to questions about
what's happening in India, how business is actually conducted in that country. Secondly, we have plenty of courses on emerging markets with an emerging market focus and an international finance focus. And I, in fact, teach one of those classes. I teach international financial management, both for audiences of Masters in Business Administration, MBA students, Masters in Finance and Economics or MFE students, and even executive audiences. And there I have a very strong focus on emerging markets. In particular, I have a lot of examples from India, which happens to be my own home country.
But the Syed School does not just study business. It has active links with business houses and with government.
We also have a policy engagement with India as well. So we have plenty of contacts with conferences, policymakers in India, and there's plenty of exchange in that dimension also.
That is inevitably a consequence of India's growing strength as an economic player underpinned by political ties.
Three gentlemen in robes.
When I look at Oxford, a great university that's very successful at spinning out wonderful companies from its academic base, then it seems to me India is a natural partner for the university and the academics here. You know, too many people in Britain still think of India as a low-cost, low-wage destination. The truth is, India is one of the most important sources of investment into Britain. The Tata Group, of course, now our biggest manufacturing employer. But increasingly, India is also a source of innovation. And it just seems to me that any academic, any entrepreneur who wants to be at the leading edge in their discipline or their technology or business needs to look at India and think about the partnerships it can create there, because there's so much creativity and innovation and thirst for learning and knowledge in India. It's a natural partner for Oxford.
And the man heading the business of promoting business between India and Britain brings an Oxford touch.
India is a hugely creative, dynamic nation at the moment. I mean, it's so exciting. You get off the plane and the buzz is really, really remarkable. And I think bringing that into that kind of seize the moment, the carpe diem that India has, bringing that to Oxford will really help galvanize research, will galvanize innovation, will galvanize technology. And I think India really does have something strong to contribute to Oxford at the moment.
New groups of people emerging.
And Indian companies and institutions are now stepping up to forge links with Oxford.
Well, the Shiv Foundation, which I am representing today at the Oxford India Day, has been having discussions with Oxford University for a long time, with Vice Chancellor Andy Hamilton, with the Chancellor Lord Patton, to try and forge a partnership across Oxford University, not in any specific part, but across the university, to try and see how we can bring a couple of things in here. First, how can we forge a partnership based on developing capacity in India for building, faculty capacity, building student capacity, and importantly, research capacity. Because we strongly believe that the foundation of a good university, which is what we run back in India and what Oxford's been doing for 800 to 900 years, is in creating knowledge and in the frontier areas and actually pushing the boundaries of knowledge. And that is the area where the Shiv Nadar Foundation is hoping to collaborate deeply with Oxford University.
Many of these will be business deals, but with a focus on social change.
In fact, that's kind of what the Spirit of India Day was all about, which is to get everybody into the business school to talk about different areas of specialization. So in that sense, we're backed up by the resources of the mighty Oxford University, and so we leverage that to the extent that's possible. So that's kind of one of the ways in which we distinguish ourselves. The other one is we're quite international in focus as well. So while India will certainly be an important part of our curriculum, not all of our cases are drawn from India.
The importance of working with Oxford and other universities of this nature is that we benefit from their collective knowledge. And these are universities which have been in existence for several hundred years. There's a body of knowledge, there's a body of a way of doing things, and also there's a body of scientific research that's going on here, which is of great interest to us. So Oxford can help India in many, many ways, particularly by supplying what I would call developmental multipliers.
Oxford has progressed from a stamp of excellence for a few to developing business for many and science for many, many more. For all this old look, this is a new Oxford doing business, academic and otherwise, with the new India.